So what is a pollinator pathway? There's a national pollinator pathway organization, and they define a pollinator pathway as public and private pesticide-free corridors of native plants that provide nutrition and habitat for pollinating insects and birds. Even the smallest green spaces like flower boxes and curb strips can be part of a pathway. So in other words, it's spatially connected patches of native habitat that can range from large areas to very small, even tree lawn gardens. The pollinator pathway is one of several national efforts to get people to plant native. But what's different about the pollinator pathway is that while it's a national network, it's a network of grassroots neighborhood pollinator pathways. And I think that makes it a really good fit for wild ones because we kind of have a similar structure. We're a national organization, but we've got grassroots chapters. And there's a couple of advantages to working at this neighborhood scale. There's an ecological advantage and a social advantage. So the ecological advantage is habitat connectivity. So on the left, we've got a picture of a typical suburban landscape. You've got two larger habitat patches that might be like parks, for example. And in between, you've got a lot of development and very little habitat. You've got a lot of lawns and neighborhoods. And say in that scenario, you've got a small pollinator that doesn't travel very far. And in one of these parks, it goes extinct. Now, because that habitat is fragmented, that park won't be able to be repopulated by individuals from the other park because it's just too far for them to travel. Now, if you have a scenario on the right where you've got those two parks, but they're also connected by smaller patches of habitat that people have created in their yards, those two populations of pollinators are going to be more resilient because they're connected by smaller patches of habitat. So if you have an extinction event or something, those populations can be replenished and you've got genetic flow back and forth. And also these small patches, they can add up to more of the sum of their parts. So if you got a species that needs a larger area to forage, like chickadees, for example, that need to feed caterpillars to their young, they might need a lot of space to collect those caterpillars. One yard might not be able to support a pair of chickadees, but a few yards that are close together might be able to do that. So this kind of connectivity is important at multiple scales. So down at the bottom, we've got these small range pollinators, like that example, but this also helps out migrating species like the monarch butterfly that need stopover habitat between their breeding and overwintering grounds. Another benefit of working at the neighborhood scale is social connectivity. And that's what's going to help this project reach people who maybe have never planted natives before. I'd like to see the pathway grow street by street. And when groups of people get involved together, it removes certain barriers to entry with growing native plants. So research shows that often more important than what you read online about landscaping is what your neighbors' yards look like. So no one wants to be a sore thumb in their neighborhood, but doing a project with your neighborhood together eliminates that barrier. And then also people who plant native tend to be people who already know how to garden or who might know how to pick out the right native plants. But if you're working as a group with the support of an organization, you can really reduce that knowledge barrier. And there's some tools I'm excited to experiment with that might make it easy for ambassadors to recruit people. I imagine some of the people on this call are already sort of native plant ambassadors in their community, and we probably know many more that are out there evangelizing about native plants. We could create materials like few postcards that would make it less scary to invite your neighbors to do a project with you, for example. Or we could work with nurseries or local organizations to give talks in neighborhood groups and recruit people that way. And I'd be really interested to hear you guys' input on the best ways to grow the pathway as well in the future.